In this video, we're going to go over the hanging band technique, or otherwise known as the hanging band training. So typically what we use this for is our big power lifts, or our big lifts that we use for our foundational movement pattern. So we're going to see it in a bench press. We can also do it in other movements such as a squat. So it's really good for just the whole concept of adding instability into your movement. When we actually add the resistance band, the band wants to move around a little bit more, so we're adding that whole congruency of the nervous system wanting to do a little bit more in the core and the stabilizers to stabilize that position into a better movement quality. So what I'm going to have Gregory do is we typically don't necessarily want to use these movements with a lighter resistance band, and he's going to demonstrate the reason why we don't. So this is an 8-kilogram kettlebell. It's not necessarily the heaviest kettlebell, but with our orange resistance band, now he's just going to go up and down. Like imagine that if you're doing a bench press or even like a squat, what's it doing? It's hitting the ground every single time. So it's not necessarily the most resistance that we want to keep the band from not hanging too far. Also, when we're doing these movements, you can use kettlebells, you can also use plates as well. So we're going to demonstrate in a little bit in this video 2 more movements that you can kind of be using a plate or also a kettlebell. So I highly recommend when you're doing this, don't necessarily use your orange, red, or your blue resistance bands. You want to go a little bit more on the higher portions to it. So maybe the next step up, we use our green one and also our black one. So Gregory's going to demonstrate the same exact thing that he did. So he's double looping it around those handles. He's going to act like he's going into a bench press position. Once he's in the bench press position, he's going to kind of just keep his arms going up and down. Now the resistance band can handle that motion going up and down. In this section of the video, we're going to talk about the setup for the hanging band training for our bench press with the barbell. So typically when I use this, we can use a kettlebell like we talked about earlier, or we can be using a plate. If you use a plate, you can be using bumper plates, which are a little bit larger in diameter, but just be aware that that might hit the ground a little bit more than your standard plates that we have for a 25-pound, which are a little bit smaller, or 10 pounds. So typically when I go into our hanging band technique, when I use the larger one for our resistance band, I'm gonna loop it around the hole in the center. So once I loop it around the hole in the center, we're gonna make sure that we have a nice equal balance in between both of the left and the right side. Again, I'm not necessarily hanging it all the way through. I'm not gonna loop it around and let it hang there just because that's gonna be closer to the ground. Again, just as we talked about earlier, the kettlebell, the place that's gonna keep banging on the ground, it's gonna bounce off of the ground. We want to make it a little bit farther away from the ground, so that's why I'm going to produce a little bit more of this double pattern and make sure that I can hang it here. So I get the double patterns a little bit farther away from the ground. So now what we are going to do, we're going to come over here and we're going to hang it on the end. Typically what I always like to do when we are hanging this from the end of basically our barbell, we kind of want it further away from our rack. And typically the reason why is when we are in this, we create that instability where now the actual plate or the kettlebell is going to be rocking. It's not necessarily just rocking forwards and backwards. It's not rocking up and down, but it can be going in and out at the same exact time. So imagine that if I have this resistance band really, really close to my clip right here, it's just going to keep literally hitting that rack. So I typically start a little bit farther away. Also, if you have additional clips, you can be a little bit more of the safety side and actually add the clips at the end just to make sure that you keep that band in that perfect position. So now we're going to demonstrate this movement with just Gregory doing a standard bench press with the hanging bar technique with our plates. Alright, so we're going to do about 3 repetitions. Keep in a good position. Again, when you pick up that barbell, it's going to start moving a little bit. So make sure you take your time when you are doing these techniques. Because definitely you don't want to pull it out and all of a sudden it adds that little bit more of the instability. So when Gregory picks it up, again, takes that good position. You can even see he's fighting that little bit of that hanging band technique. Going down, and then he just comes right back up. Boom, let's go 2 more repetitions. Again, he's controlling that technique. That band is kind of moving around a little bit on him. We got 1 more rep. And perfect, we'll rack it. So that will be our barbell bench press with our our plate hanging band technique. In the last portion of this video, we're going to talk about the hanging band technique, but specifically for a back squat. So when we're using the barbell, we obviously want to keep everything in a good fashion, make sure that you obviously have your safety bars up as well. But from here, when we have our resistance band, again, I always recommend the thicker bands at first. The reason why we are going to do our double fashion is we don't want to go here in this position, looping it around, is because now from here, if I'm hanging that bar in this position, look how far away it is from the ground. So imagine that if I'm just doing my squats, it's just literally going to keep hitting that ground. So I'm going to do that double banded technique. So when I do it nice and slow for everybody. I'm going to take the resistance band, put it around my kettlebell or my plate. You can use plates as well. But now what I'm going to do is this double loop it from here, and now it's a little bit stronger on that resistance band and it won't necessarily keep banging on the ground. So we're going to put this here. Again, I always recommend to kind of keep it away. So if I'm here, you heard that first one, it's just literally going to keep on hitting that safety bar and the rep. So I always recommend, we're going to kind of keep it away a little bit, having that. I always recommend maybe about a finger length away from the end to where the resistance band would lay. Then from here, Gregory is going to demonstrate 3 repetitions with our back squat. So perfect. Going into that technique. I'm here for him. Again, now when he goes up, he's nice and slow. It's just going to keep rocking him a little bit from side to side. Again, taking your time. Going down, brace up. Good, good, good. Coming right back up. There's 1. Good. 2, let's go 1 more. There's 3, going right there in position. So this is perfect for just, again, instability, a lot of core work. When we add it to our back squat, the resistance bands want to basically kind of keep our body going from a lateral movement. Again, you got to fight that to keep your body in a straight line. I hope these videos helped you out.